All right, today we're talking about step 4, financial freedom, and what we're going to zone in and study today is the mortgage. We want to get a really good understanding of our mortgage and why would we be thinking about the mortgage as it pertains to financial freedom. Because when you really think about it, that's really where financial freedom starts. When you buy a hard asset like a house, usually it appreciates in value over years. So you start to establish a home with X amount of dollars in value in it, and then you start to build your net worth that way. So that's probably one of the first steps that most of us take toward financial freedom. Now, of course, we do some preliminary things as well, but home ownership is a big step that you take toward financial freedom because it could substantially improve your net worth. So we're going to talk about the mortgage and how that mortgage could impact your ability to produce your wealth. And when we really understand the mortgage, then we might have a better way of planning to go about dealing with our mortgage, because most of us want a home and most people are going to borrow money in order to buy a home. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to borrow money to buy a home, because I don't think it is. But I do think that we can do it with a better understanding, with a better game plan, so that we buy the home with the thought of ownership other than buying a home and having in our mind that we're going to basically be glorified renters for a 30-year period of time, which really turns into a lifelong period of time to where you're paying for a home. And even sometimes people take mortgages into retirement. And usually in retirement, you're making less money than you were making during your working year. So we want to look at some different ways at zoning in on our mortgage and perhaps paying the mortgage off long before retirement may ever come, or right before retirement comes if that's what you want to do. But we're going to talk about it so that we understand it, so we can see the picture of what a mortgage really looks like, what it's going to cost us over the long term, and then how we can shorten that window, how we can go in and shorten that window by doing some things just a little bit differently than most people do. All right, so buying a home, in my opinion, is a really good thing to do, except when you do it the wrong way. You see, a lot of times what happens is we go into home buying in the right mindset. We sit down with our spouse or we sit down by ourselves and we say, we're only going to spend X amount of dollars. Let's just say we came to the conclusion and said we can afford a $250,000 mortgage. But here's what happens. You go out and you start house hunting. And all the emotions get into that, and you start to see these beautiful homes, and the agent starts to say, okay, well, this one is going to cost about $350,000. This one is going to cost about $375,000. And you're out there and you're looking at the house and you're saying, oh, okay. And you are accepting an additional $125,000, $100,000 on a house because you're saying to yourself, oh, it's a beautiful home. Oh, $350, I had said $250, but I can do $350. That's not going to be a problem. Well, you know better than that in your right mind. But in your emotions, you go ahead and you go with that. So we don't want to get caught up in our emotions. We want to start out the right way so that we can get a home that we can afford. How do you know what's a good number for you? Well, there are different rules. There's a 28% rule that says that you're not going to spend more than 28% of your gross income on a house and the expenses that come with a house. Not more than 28%. Then there's another rule that I like. Dave Ramsey says that you don't spend over 25% of your net income on a home. So if you're making $3,000 a month, you don't spend over 25% of that $3,000 that you're bringing home every month. Your net income, not your gross. So that gives you an idea of a home that you can afford, that you can still buy a home and not be what people refer to as house poor, meaning that you're basically working to pay for your house. And now let's talk about how your mortgage will impact your overall income. And the reason why we're so concerned with different impacts on our income is because our income is our number one resource as it pertains to us building wealth. So we need to build a wall of protection around our income so it cannot be invaded, so the termites can't get in and start eating away at our income. And when we notice that there are termites, we have to go in and treat that situation. But in this situation, we're going to try to avoid something catastrophic happening before it ever happens by getting the right amount of house. We're not going to get too much house. So I want to show you how a mortgage could impact your income. So let's take a look at the average mortgage. The average home in the United States costs $375,000. So what we're going to do here is going to enter $375,000 as the home price. We're not going to put a down payment in because a lot of people never put a down payment on a home. I completely disagree with that method of operating because I think that that doesn't set you up for home ownership. What it does is more so set you up to be a renter for the rest of your life. So home ownership to me says that you have a plan to actually own the home. You see, people say home ownership all the time, but they give that tag to anybody who goes and get a loan. But to me, that's not the case. Most people are just renting. We want to get out of the renting business and we want to get into home ownership. So where it says down payment here, I always want to put a minimum of 20% down on a house, whether I'm buying the house or whether I'm investing in that house. I noticed that when I invested in homes, when I was buying homes as investments, the bank always required that we put 20% down on those investment properties. So I adopted that as my way of operating even when I purchase homes that I'm gonna live in. So 20% down is a requirement in my opinion because that says that I have the mindset to own the home. And really quick note, not only will putting down 20% start to move you toward home ownership a whole lot faster, but it's also gonna save you a lot of money on a yearly basis. See, because if you don't put 20% down, usually you'll have to pay what's called PMI, private mortgage insurance. And private mortgage insurance is about 0.5 to 1% of the loan amount. So let's just say that you have a $300,000 loan, you'll be paying $1,500 a year, $1,500 to $3,000 a year just in private mortgage insurance. That's why the 20% is so important in my opinion. All right? So long term is going to be 30 years. Annual interest rate is 4%. We're going to use 4% interest rate. All right? We're not going to do any property taxes on homeowners insurance or HOA dues or anything such as that right now. We'll get into that at another time. We just want to show you how much you're going to be paying a month for the average home in the United States just for the house.
Please like, subscribe,
now,
and click
principal
the bell
and
so you
interest
don't miss
payment on a
anything.
$375,000 mortgage, zero down, is going to cost you $1,790 a month. Now what I want you to pay particular attention to here is not only you're going to pay $1,800 a month for a 30-year period, but let's look at how much interest you'll pay over the life of that loan. You're going to pay $269,511. Almost $270,000 of your dollars will go out of the window. Just throw away money, throwing it at interest. Nothing else, just paying interest. Basically, you're paying $270,000 for them to give you a loan of $375,000. Now, does that pass the common sense test to you? Does it make sense to you to say, hey, I'm going to borrow $375,000 and I'm going to pay back $270,000? And let me be clear, you're going to pay the $375,000 back plus an additional $279,000 in interest. In total, that's about $644,000 you pay for a $375,000 loan. Do you see the impact that could have on your overall net worth, your money? Because we're talking $270,000 out of the window. So if we can cut that down substantially, and we can, wouldn't you want to do that? Absolutely. So we would know from the door that we have no intention of going a 30-year time period for this loan. Even if we get a 30-year loan, we do not want to go for a 30-year period paying that loan off. At least I don't. Now, I know there's some people in the camp that say, I want a mortgage. I'll make those payments so that I can write the interest off at the end of the year. Now, I'm not in that camp. I don't get the rationale behind saying I'm going to make an $1,800 or $2,000 a month mortgage payment just so I can write off X amount of dollars in interest. Because what people don't understand is most people don't get that write-off because you're taking a standard deduction and it's already included in the standard deduction. So if you're not itemizing, you're never taking advantage of writing any interest off. You might send in your 1098, I think it is, to show that you paid off X amount of interest, but that is not being deducted because you're taking the standard deduction. And just so you'll know that I'm not just saying something to you here, that I actually do what I'm sharing with you in this video. I just got a mortgage recently, about a year ago, and I'm going to share the numbers with you. In total, we paid about $240,000 for the house, and we put about 30% down on this property. I think we put $60,000 down on the property, and we financed $180,000 over a 15-year period of time, not a 30-year. Because financing over a 30-year period of time, of course, that's going to take me longer, and I'm going to pay more money out in the long run, and usually the interest rate is going to be a little bit higher. So on a 15-year loan, I can get a better interest rate. I got a shorter period of time that I'm paying for the house. Now, yes, the payment is more, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on getting the house paid off and becoming an owner as quickly as possible. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I think it's very important that we get control over our assets as quickly as possible, to not allow another man, a bank, to have control over our assets for any longer period of time than necessary. And how you control your assets, how you take back your control, is you pay that property off. And when you pay the property off, now you can control it. And not only do you control the asset, you have control over your money now. Instead of paying $1,500, $1,600 for the place that you're going to live at, when you don't owe any more money on it, now that $1,500 or $1,600 comes back into your household, and you can utilize that cash to grow your wealth instead of growing someone else's wealth. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Take back your control. Get your control back by controlling your assets. In the meantime, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.